Hello and thank you for joining us here on another episode of Talon Talk. I'm Jack Barteck, alongside head women's basketball coach Karin Harvey. Coach, how's it going?
It's going well. Thanks for having me, Jack.
Good to talk to you as always, but even better talking to you after a nice win on Wednesday night, and it was the 11th win in a 12-game stretch. What has been the difference maker turning it around for you guys?
I know. Yeah, it's much better this Talon Talk, I think. I mean, I had fun the last time, but I feel a little bit better about where we are this time. I think the difference, and you know this because you've seen this, and I think the difference is our defense. You know, I think our defense and our rebounding has come along tremendously as a team. And then I think, a lot of players have found their role, and Nikki Carter has found her groove on the offensive end. And that might be a little bit of an understatement. So I think that we just kind of have things going. We kind of figured ourselves out a little bit.
And after a 1-4 start this season, we spoke back then. Did you ever think that with the final weeks of the regular season coming to a close, you would be tied for second in the conference and right there at the end?
I did. I thought we could get there, and you and I talked about that. I really did think that we could get there, but they had to put a lot of work in, and that was the part I wasn't sure if they were going to do that, and they did. They really dedicated themselves. They've worked very, very hard. And I think that this team is unique in the fact that they have very distinct roles, and they're all different. And each one of them have sort of embraced that role and are playing pretty well in it.
And I know that when this airs, you will have taken on Jersey City on Saturday, and then you get to go on the road to Rowan for the last game of the regular season. It almost feels like the playoffs are coming early here in the final 2 games of the regular season. Do you get that sense as well? And does it change anything, or is it just like any other day?
No, it does feel like playoffs. I feel like it's playoffs right now. This morning I woke up and I was like, it feels like playoffs. We have 2 games left, and we really need to split. I don't think that we need to go 2-0. It certainly would be fun and nice, but we do not need to. We need to split. So I'd like to start with that Jersey City game and see if we can get that split there at home. It's not the end of the world if we don't, but I think that would be really good for us.
We spoke a couple of practices ago about how I thought this was the biggest challenge of your career. You agreed. Just talk about that and how you've been able to overcome coaching a group that is different from any other that you've experienced.
Yeah, I think it has been very different and very challenging. And it's also the first group that I've coached that's been through COVID and a national pandemic. And we underestimated coming into this year how much that has affected them and would continue to affect them, throughout the season. When I'm traveling with Kendall, who's a sophomore now, and she's saying to me, "Oh, wow, I've never been here before." Well, I'm sorry, what? It's just sort of like a small window into their lack of experience and their limits because of COVID. So I think that was a piece of it. They needed to really understand what this full year was going to look like and what college basketball is actually supposed to look like. You don't play the same team on Friday and Saturday. And I think once they started to figure that out and got a little bit more comfortable, we started to be able to get into a groove.
And you mentioned coming off the pandemic season. I know we talked about last year how it impacted, especially Kendall running the point. How nice has it been to get back to a 20-game season where you could work through the growing pains early, as you guys did, and now you're red hot going into the best time of the year?
Yeah, I think that. I think about that. Like if the years were flipped, we would have ended 3-7, and it would have felt like a failure. And instead, it's going to have a completely different feel to it. We're getting to play pretty much a 23-game season, and they've had so much growth and development. And, just even in this last 2 weeks, you look at what Olivia has done just in the last 2 weeks, and she gets better by the minute. But she needed a full season to be able to do that. So I think that part is really great.
And I was going to ask you about Nikki first, but you segued it perfectly, so I'll ask you about Olivia. 2.5 blocks a game as a true freshman. She's leading the NJAC, and she leads the NJAC in total blocks, not just blocks per game. Talk about the job that she's done defensively coming in. It seems like she's got a really bright future ahead of her.
I agree with you. I think her future is very bright. And, I think Olivia came about, Olivia got an opportunity. And this is kind of the conversation I had with her today. A lot of people get opportunities. It doesn't mean they take advantage of it. But I think she did. She took advantage of that opportunity. She worked hard. She listened. And she got to show us a little bit of what she's capable of. And, I think most of us who follow along remember the first game she played and was like, oh, wow, that's what you're capable of? Okay, so now let's work on this a little bit more. I talked to her parents last night and said, I think she has a really bright future. I think she can be an all-conference player. I think she can have a huge impact for us. And when she starts, she already can defend, but when she starts scoring in that post, which she has, as a post player, she has amazing hands. And that's hands and vision. And if you have those two things as a post player, you're going to be pretty good.
The vision is the most interesting thing to me as a passer. She just sees the game differently than especially most bigs. When she catches the ball at the free throw line, she's always facing up, and you mentioned it as one of her best skills. It's been nice to see her get to show that, right?
Yeah, it was fun, especially like in the last 5 minutes of the game yesterday. She was just she was just passing everyone. She saw everything. I think she's going to be a pretty special player, and she's a really fun kid to work with. Because she has a personality. I don't know if you've gotten to talk to her yet, but she's a funny kid. She's from Staten Island. She's tough. She's pretty straightforward. So I think it's going to be really fun watching her develop.
Fearless too.
Fearless.
I mean, you go into some matchups sometimes in the NJAC, you can't feel like you're any less than, and I think she never goes into a matchup thinking that.
Yeah, well, she's going to have to guard this kid from Jersey City tomorrow, so we're going to see how fearless she really is.
And we mentioned the passing. I think it goes hand in hand with the unselfishness of this team. And the offense really facilitates so well. And I think it has to do with the passers on this squad. Just talk about the passing, especially from players that it might not be their number one aspect that people think about, like Nikki Carter, Julia Sutton. Also great passers, too.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's why we still have high turnover numbers, but beginning of the year, we were having really high turnover numbers. I think of a lot of it, I didn't realize it was they were trying to make the pass that they knew was there, but just didn't make the pass correctly, or, you know what I mean? Just the timing was a little bit off. But yeah, if you look at Julia Sutton's actually a phenomenal passer. And if you look at Nikki's stats, she's averaging 4 or 5 assists a game. And then they're not even point guards. And Trish, same thing. Her stats are really up there too.
She's had a couple near triple doubles.
Yeah, she really has with assists, rebounds, and blocks, right?
Yeah.
So I think that sharing the basketball is really important, and it keeps us balanced. We don't, as prolific as a scorer as Nikki Carter is, we don't want all of the weight to fall on her, and it needs to be balanced, and we have other people that can really share in that.
Juxtaposing that, on Wednesday, she was the catalyst. 34 points. It was the second highest single game recorded scoring performance in Montclair State women's basketball history. You've been around a lot of great players and a lot of great scorers. Where does she stack up?
I think she's going to be top 5 when it's all said and done.
Wow.
I do. I think that's how good she is.
Do you have 5 in mind? That's putting you on the spot.
Well, obviously Carol is 1, and Carol will always be 1, and no one will ever even come close.
I said going into the fourth quarter last night, I don't think Nikki's going to pull a 20-point fourth
No.
to reach the 57
right.
that she would have.
Yeah, no one's ever going to match Carol in an era where basketball was, entirely different. But I think, 2 on that list is Melissa Tobey. Katie Sayers probably 3. I think Nikki Carter could end up, right in there, right in that 3, 4.
And she's working her way up, 68 points from 1,000 going into Saturday's game at Jersey City. And that's an extraordinary feat, but it's even more extraordinary when you consider only a 10-game season last year.
Exactly. And also when you think about the fact she's going to play 2 more years after this one.
Bright future.
Bright future.
You have a really nice senior group, which we'll get to in a second, but you also have a lot of youth on this team that I think sets you up pretty well for the future. Just talk about that youth and how good you feel about the foundation.
Yeah, exactly. We're obviously we have Kendall who's playing great, and then Olivia. And then we have some younger players that are really, Mo and Kayla, the twins, super athletic, and Mo can really defend, and Kayla can shoot the 3 a little bit, and then we, We have a couple other freshman guards that are going to develop. So, and we have a really good recruiting class coming in as well. So, yeah, I think the future's bright.
I wish I could be here for it. I'll be excited to follow along from afar. And the last thing that I want to hit on here, like to end it out with a little bit of fun. It was senior night on Wednesday, and I mentioned you're graduating a great group of seniors. So I'm going to give you a couple names, and I'll give you a chance to just talk about them. And if you have any memories that stick out with these names, starting with assistant Dora Duguay.
Yeah, Dora. So Dora started out playing for us. She's going to be so mad when I say this. The funny memory of Dora is when she was a freshman, she got in trouble in class for talking too much. And she got Riley in trouble too, because they took all their classes together. So we had to write apology emails and all this stuff. And I'm like, what is going on with this kid? I can't have her involved in the program, And then Riley, of course, who is the nicest, kindest person on the planet, who would never say anything and never get in trouble, is also in trouble. And so as the story evolved, we figured it all out, and it just became this funny joke. And now, Dora is, a student assistant manager, does anything. She's been with us for 4 years. But she has a big personality and is really funny.
Next up, a player who has been on fire from 3 this season, Annie Walsh.
Yeah, I mean, just if you want this kid to be your teammate, that's what you want. I mean, she has done anything that anyone has ever asked of her for 4 years. She knows the game of basketball. She works hard day in and day out. She'll be on the scout team. She'll be on the starting team. She'll be whatever you want her to do, she will do. And she can really shoot it. And you can see when she hits a 3, I mean, the whole bench goes crazy. So it was fun. It's fun. And she's kind of, into our rotation a little bit now. So it's not so it was fun to see her hit a few last night for senior night.
The rebounding machine, Kelly Smith.
Absolutely. Kelly is, we talk about Kelly as the nicest human being on the planet. And I don't know if that's an exaggeration. I have coached so many great young women, none of which has ever been as nice and as good as a person as this one is. I mean, I would coach 10 Kelly Smiths for the rest of my career and not have a problem with it at all. Just everything. I mean, she's just kind, caring, passionate, funny, tough. She just has it all. And she'll do, and just the greatest teammate. Anything you ever need. I mean, Kendall was talking about Kelly the other day and said, Kelly is perfect. I mean, absolutely perfect. And I'm like, yeah, she's pretty close. So.
You mentioned Riley when you were talking about Dora, but I'll put you on the spot for another one, Riley Mulligan.
Riley's just awesome. I mean, Riley's different and funny, and she skateboards and does all this stuff. Every once in a while, you catch her dancing out of the corner of your eye, and that is not, apparently that is her personality, but only with her teammates. And she's playing great basketball right now. I mean, really come into her own after that concussion and come back and is really helping us. And you're doing also a great student. She's really smart, 4.0 kid. Wow. Oh yeah, very smart.
A player that you have said on numerous occasions is at least one of your favorites.
Yeah.
Trisha Peterson.
Trisha. I sat with her parents the other night at senior night and reeled off a bunch of stories. But, my favorite story to tell is when Trish was a freshman, I yelled at Trish every single day of practice. I mean, I kicked her out of practices. And I was angry at her 24/7 because she didn't work hard and she was soft, and I didn't think she was ever going to be tough enough. She couldn't do a push-up. And I mean, look at her now. She is the toughest. She'll run for days, never needs to come off the court, gets a million rebounds, does anything you ask. And her and I have a really good relationship. So I'm proud of all of them, but Trish and I have something special, and I'm really proud of her and her development and not only the player that she's become, but the person that she's become. She can drop down and give you 10 push-ups now, no problem.
And another player that made an impact from day one, Julia Sutton.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Julia's fun. I mean, she can heat up, and as you know, and she's really tough. Julia's tough. She comes off. She has a tough exterior where she comes off like everyone's afraid of her, but she's actually so nice and sweet. And she went through the ACL tear, that is, one of the most difficult injuries to come back from, and she came back from that, and she's better than ever, and she's having a great senior year, and she's been a lot of fun to coach.
And you've said time and time again, this is the nicest group of kids that you've ever had in a graduating class. Talk about what it's been like working with them and what they've meant to the program the last 4 years.
Yeah, it's been easy. I mean, working with them has been easy in the fact that you never have to worry about anything. They're not going to do anything wrong off the court, or they're not going to, they're just great people, and they're all great students. I mean, every single one of these seniors is, 3.5, 3.7, 4.0 students. And they're all going to go on to, be great members of society and human beings. So it's been a lot of fun. It's also been fun because they've had to develop. Like their games, they came in good players, but they had to really develop to be good college players. So it's been really fun working with them and watching them grow, and they're still developing. And they're willing to do that. And they're in the team room an hour and a half before practice, and they're dedicated. They work hard, and they love each other. They're so close, this group, which is it's fun to see, I think, for me.
And I think at least somewhat it has to play into the run that you guys have made on the court.
Yeah, oh, definitely, yeah, yep. I definitely think, we talked about that at one point when we were struggling a little bit. I said you need to work harder at your relationships with the rest of your teammates. Sometimes, the five of them are so close that could, you got to break in there a little bit. And I think, but they did that. They heard me, and they created relationships with the rest of the team. And, I think now that I was just talking to Olivia earlier today, and she was saying how, I hang out with the seniors all the time now. It's like my favorite. So I think they've done a good job of creating those relationships, and which helps on the court for sure. Well,
Coach, that's all I have. Any closing remarks?
No, I hope that by the time this airs that we have at least won one of the last two, and that we're working hard to see where we're going to do in the playoffs.
Well, Coach, thank you very much for taking the time and joining us. Can't wait to see what you guys have up your sleeve down the stretch here. Should be a fun close to the season. And thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Talon Talk. Alongside Coach Harvey, I'm Jack Barteck. Have a good one.